Oh, we're already live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Back to Basics today. My name is Brendan Blake. I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy, and I'm here with you doing our Back to Basics series with Coach Sherry Ann. Coach Sherry Ann, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Brendan. I'm doing awesome.
Great. Give me 1 second here.
While you're pulling up your AARP information, it's just been lovely here in Arizona because we've have a dip in temperature. So we woke up to 55 degrees this morning.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? And it's been a little hazy this morning after the storm last night, hasn't it?
Yes, I'm liking it. It feels actually like fall here in Arizona. So when you're tuning in, wherever you're tuning in from, please tell us where you are because I'm always envious of everyone that's experiencing 4 seasons because we have 2 seasons here.
Yeah, and if I usually I'm in the background, so I get to read all the comments rather than be on the screen, and so it's always nice to get to see where everybody's from. So please, like Sherry Ann said, please tell us where you are. All right, we'll go ahead and get started right now. Give me 1 second. All right. We appreciate everybody for joining us today. So, once again, my name is Brendan Blake. I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy with AARP Arizona. AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age, which I believe we'll be talking about today. With a nationwide presence and nearly 38 million members across the nation and over 900,000 in Arizona, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families: health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. In the month of October, we are focused on managing debt, building savings, and marketing and making better social security decisions. We will showcase AARP's relevance as a wise friend and fierce defender. We will provide tips so you can manage your debt and your savings to improve your financial health. Go on to aarp.org/moneymap for tips, tools, and resources. AARP Money Map is a free solution that helps you create a plan of action for unplanned expenses and debt. You can also track your goals and learn new ways that budgeting can turn goals into reality. Well, I have now fulfilled my duty as a member of AARP staff. So, Coach, please take it away.
Well done. Well, thank you so much for having me here. And so, yes, please tune in. As you tune in, let us know where you're tuning in from. I always love to see where people are coming from. But today, yes, we are discussing growing young. And what spawned it was I saw this book by, her name is Marta Zaraska. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but I know she's from, I believe, from France. But she wrote this amazing book on growing young because when people talk about aging, it's always like growing old. Like we don't want to grow old. And so it's like, let's just flip the script. Let's change our perspective and talk about how we can actually grow young, and then what comes on the flip side of that is then people go, well, I don't want to be 100 and crippled and, infirm and sick and disease ridden and things like that. So that's why growing young is talking about living a long, healthy life. And so we'll talk about what it really looks like. And I'm going to describe soft drivers versus hard drivers. And for an example, like hard drivers are what we know. And that is our exercise and our diet. And everybody always talks about exercise and diet. I mean, it's almost overplayed. But that gets talked about because there's money in that. And so that's why that gets talked about. But some of the things that we don't get talked about are the soft drivers, and those are just as impactful as your diet and exercise, and sometimes more. So Growing Young was a great book. It's just about how friendship, optimism, kindness can all help you live to be a centenarian, which is 100 years old. And so I do want to live a long, vivacious life. And so I do look forward to being 100 and feisty. So I'm like, be prepared, kids. Because I want to play with my grandkids, and so there's a lot of that goes into that because most people right now that live to be 80 they spend 18% of their life disease ridden. And so we don't want to live like that. We want to live like a healthy, vivacious life. And so we'll talk about what that looks like. But it is, I think it is exciting when you change and you flip the script and think about growing young rather than growing old.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that, I've been talking to my mom about recently. She's almost 70 years old now, and she's on the cusp of retirement, and how do we keep her healthy as she ages? She's got a really great social network. She talks to her siblings on almost a daily basis, sometimes to her chagrin. But she's also really active as well. She exercises, she does a lot of these things, but we talked about how she's going to stay involved and do other things, so that way she can always have a reason for getting up in the morning, and that allows her to helps her stay healthy. So I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, and that's so wonderful that she's doing that, because that is one of the things that I have talked about and taught about, is having a purpose. And because if you don't have a purpose, that's what we talked about 2 weeks ago, was retiring and being mentally prepared to retire, because most people aren't. They're financially prepared, but then they're not even emotionally or mentally prepared for it. And so having a purpose is really, really important. And there are so many studies that are happening that there are randomized experiments. They're studying cell cultures. They're showing the effects on gene expression, the levels of immune proteins on our cells, our hormones, our brain activation. So there's all kinds of research going on right now on these soft drivers, because what we do socially and our mental habits affect us physiologically. And people have been focused on what we're feeding our body and how we're treating our body as far as those having a physiological response. But what we do socially and our mental habits has just as much, if not more, of an impact on us physiologically. And so that's why I'm just wanting to have this conversation about what we could be doing to help ourselves outside of our diet and our exercise. Because people are more focused on like freaking out, like they need to go get their hour of exercise in today. Otherwise, their health is going to be impacted. It's like, well, did you spend an hour socializing? Did you spend an hour, being present or volunteering or doing something that's going to boost your lower your cortisol levels and boost your serotonin levels? Right. And so our hormone levels are just as important as what we're eating and how we're moving our bodies.
Right. And I don't think that this is age specific, helpful information either. I think that even as I grow continually younger, that I think it's helpful information as well. So where would you like to start?
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because you can start this at any point in time. Like, you're going to reap the benefits. And so the younger you can start implementing it. And the thing too is, like, share this with your family, share this with your children, and talk to them about their mental health, because it's just as important as taking care of themselves physically. And our mind and body is totally connected. And it's becoming more and more apparent to people, especially in the middle of a pandemic. When that happened, the stress of everybody skyrocketed, and people's mental health was in jeopardy. And it still is that way, because we're still in such a turmoil right now of masks, no masks, and then it's a constant question of, like, I'll personally, like, if I pull up to a place with my kids in the car, they're looking at the door to, like, see before we even go into the establishment, do we have to wear masks or not? And so I just removed that question. And I was like, always wear a mask. We're always wearing a mask. Even though we're vaccinated, we're going to wear a mask. Right. And it just, because the unknown has created such a high stress in people. And so this information that we're talking about today, growing young, can start for young people. It doesn't, have to be, you don't have to start doing this when you're older and try to hang on to what years you have left. Start at a young age. And so share it. Please share it. Always pass it forward. I'm always into the butterfly effect, or pay forward. Like, just give the information that you're able to attain here.
Right. Well, again, please, if you have any questions or comments for us, please feel free to share those with us. We love interacting with you all. But Coach, please, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, you're totally fine. No, I love it when people do pop in and ask questions, and and also drive the conversation. Because this isn't, I don't want to be just delivering. I mean, I do love giving content and speaking, but I also like feedback from people and questions being asked. So soft drivers versus hard drivers. And because I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday and they were like, what is a soft driver? And so if you just think of like a computer, you have a hard drive and you have a soft drive. Like they have two different things that happen. So within how we operate, hard drives, like I mentioned earlier, are things that like diet and exercise, because that's such a proponent for taking care of ourselves, but people are missing out on the soft drivers, which are things like your friendships, your outlook, your perspective, having optimism in your life, being kind, our consciousness, like things like that. Those are soft drivers that are going to impact our health. And so there's the top three, the top three things. That's like one of the first times I've gotten like tongue tied.
Yeah. You're usually so great. You're always so on.
I'm human. That can help increase your life expectancy. And I was so touched and kind of impressed with one of the top ones. And the number one is making sure that you are in a happy, committed, romantic relationship. Huh. And it's really quite impressive because it lowers your mortality rate 49%.
Wow.
That's massive. But if you really stop and think about it, we desire connection. I mean, this whole time during the pandemic, when we had to put face masks on and cover half of our face and go to Zoom like this and not be able to embrace people, how impactful that was. For me not to give my mom a hug for months was crushing. And I would go to the park with my dad and we would sit 6 feet apart from each other. But when we parted ways, like I didn't give him a hug and it drove me crazy. And so we desire connection, but to lower your mortality rate by 49% by being in a healthy, committed, romantic relationship. And so slight side tangent, like they did this whole study on these people that are close to being centenarians, and they're still having sexual intercourse. And it's amazing because it's because they're in healthy, committed relationships. And they've done studies that, if your blood flow is good, like you're going to live a long, vivacious life. Yeah. And so I thought that because good marriages calm the stress hormones, it boosts the health relevant hormones, which are your oxytocin, your endorphins, your serotonin. And so it's just so incredible but it makes sense. Like as soon as I read it, I was like, aha, yeah, like of course that makes sense. So it's shifted for me a little bit because I am also very much a fitness junkie. So I love exercise. It's kind of my outlet. But it really helped me realize I need to make sure that I'm taking time when I'm exercising, but I'm also taking the time to be available and present and committed, which I'm always very present and committed to my kids because they're my world. Like that's my responsibility. That's my number one job. But to be in a committed romantic relationship, I was like, oh, well, if I want to live to be 100, better make sure I have that.
Right. Yeah. That's really interesting, but you're right. It does make so much sense because we are so social as creatures. We like to even for people like myself that are introverts. It's not that I dislike being around people. I do enjoy being around people and having interactions with people. And when I don't interact with people, it makes me feel I don't feel as great as I do when I do get that interaction. So. Mm-hmm. Even doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, we need connection to people. And you're right. It's been so hard over the last year and a half to navigate that.
Yeah. But there's a difference in being in a committed relationship, a partnership, and then just being social. Because number two is actually your general social connectedness, connectedness with your colleagues, the quality of friendships that you have. If you know your neighbors, which is such an interesting thing because we don't know our neighbors as much now as we did when I was a child. And it's just interesting. And I think because we're so used to like pulling into their driveway, open their garage door, pull their car in, close their garage door. It's very rare that people actually have, communion with their neighbors, where they meet. I have friends that do have streets where they'll have block parties with all of their neighbors. And what a difference it makes. Because if you're ever in a pinch or you're on vacation, you'd like somebody to keep an eye on your home, or pull your trash can out or pull it back in. And if you don't have that connectedness with your neighbors, like you're living in a bubble on your own street when there's on either side of you and across the street from you. And so if you don't know your neighbors, go step outside and, or when you are outside and you do see them, make sure you're waving, and trying to get their attention. And it is a challenge, but, you have to make that effort. But yeah, our general social connectedness is the number 2 top thing that will help you increase your longevity. And it's the studies have shown, and I'm just giving you stats from the studies that I've read, but that lowers your mortality rate 45%.
Wow.
Just your general connectedness. So look at the quality of your friendships. Are you, and it's funny because as I was reading this too, I was thinking the older I've gotten, the fewer friendships I have, but they're deeper and richer. Sure. And so the quality of them is much more intense, but the quantity is much smaller. Whereas when I was younger, the quantity was huge, and, bouncing around from friend to friend. But, but as I've gotten older, there's like a small niche but the quality is so deep and rich. And we get together on a consistent basis because it's important to have that, really important to have that. But the general social connectedness is different than having an intimate relationship with one person that you can completely rely on, that brings you happiness, that you plan and you dream together and you create things together. So it's the social connectedness and the partnership, like those are separate things, but they're also overlapping, but they're so important to have both.
Yeah. I think that you're hitting on something really interesting there because, one thing that my wife and I really have been able to enjoy over the course of the pandemic is that she's been living out of state for her training, for her school. And so, we were thinking that we would have to do, time apart from each other, but because I've been able to work from home for the majority of the time that over the last year and a half, we've been able to share that time together. And I think that if we weren't able to have that time, both of us would have suffered a lot in the sense that, because we're best friends. And so, we really enjoy each other's company and enjoy spending time together. So, I can see how, because my friendships are great and I have good friends, but, my time with Lauren is just different. So
yeah, that's your partner. That's like you said, like your best friend. That's the person that knows you inside and out. That's the person that you can lean on when you need to lean on, or they can lean on you. And it's an unconditional partnership. And that's why it must be a happy, committed, romantic relationship, because that provides a different level of connectedness than just your social connections with your friends or colleagues or neighbors. And that deep connection with that one person is exponential in your longevity. And so I just find it to be so wonderful. And I love it when I see old people walking down the street or out in public holding hands, like still, or him, still getting the car door for her or kissing her on the cheek, like things like that. Like that's just so sweet because you just don't see that very much anymore. And that's why I want to encourage people, like if you have your partner, like you really need to treasure that and really honor it, because it's something that you'll have forever, and it will help you have a long, vivacious life. So cherish it. Like don't take it for granted. Yeah. It's really, really important.
Yeah. Side note, my wife and I, when we go on our little walks around our apartment complex, we always wave and we will chat sometimes with the old couples that walk around as well. So that's a favorite pastime of ours. Anyways, you said that there were a top 3. So what is the third one?
So the third one, it's interesting. So the typical, when people ask for top 3, it's challenging because the third one would most likely be diet and exercise. But I'm wanting to focus on soft drivers. So the third soft driver is kindness and volunteering. And because if you think about it, whenever I've been counseling anybody, like if they're having a really hard time in life, like, you know what? Go volunteer. Go find somebody else to take care of, to put your focus on them, because then it takes it off of you and it really allows you the ability to care for somebody else. Because when we do volunteering or any kind of act of kindness, it doesn't necessarily have to be volunteering. I mean, your act of kindness could be something as simple as picking up the trash around your neighborhood, just making things better. But what happens is it lowers our stress hormones and it inhibits our amygdala. And our amygdala is the part of our brain that is our fear center. So it's been proven that when you're volunteering and caring for someone else, that the mental benefits are massive, just massive. And so as we age, just one of the things that we're battling is mental acuity. Like, why not do things that are going to help you mentally? And one of those is volunteering. And of course, it's going to lower your cortisol levels, because when people are in a high stress, that impact, and we've talked about this before on Back to the Basics, like high stress, high cortisol levels just leads to all kinds of diseases, all kinds. So if you can do something to lower your cortisol levels and increase the feel-good stuff in your body, why not go do that? And so the third soft driver is being kind, volunteering.
That's
and because, and that's a bigger gap. So as far as like lowering your mortality rate, that one's around 22 to 44%. So it just depends on what level of kindness you're doing, how much volunteering you're doing, what it really is reaping the benefits for you. Because I mean, I was talking to someone earlier today about volunteering, and they were saying they didn't have a really good experience doing it. And I said, well, what were you like? What'd you go do? And I can't remember exactly what he said. I said, well, the point of volunteering is going and doing something that brings you passion, that touches your heart. Like, go do, like, if you love animals, go volunteer at an animal shelter. If you love kids, go find a place to volunteer for kids. Boys and girls clubs could use people like that. If your passion is with elderly, go volunteer at an elderly home. And so it's important to find what makes your heart beat and go do that, because that will also give you purpose. This all comes full circle, because volunteering helps give you purpose. And because we all want to be needed, like people, where we want connected, we want to be validated, we want to feel needed. And so volunteering is an amazing way to go do that. An amazing way.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because my father-in-law, he's a nurse by trade, nurse practitioner, he would correct me. But one of the things that he's looking forward to doing in retirement is volunteering at PCH, Phoenix Children's Hospital, for those of you outside of Arizona, and because he wants to be a hugger, because he loves babies. He absolutely loves babies, and so that's something that he's looking forward to. So in his retirement.
A hugger. That's awesome. But see, that will be so wonderful for him, because that almost brings a tear to my eye. Because what it is like, he's going to be giving, but at the same time, he will be receiving massively so. And so in that process, so that's such a beautiful thing. And I love it, because so all of these soft drivers that I gave you are in the 40% range of lowering your mortality rate. Whereas exercise lowers it 23 to 33%.
Wow.
And eating 6 servings of fruits and vegetables lowers it 26%. So, and those are the hard drivers. Those are what people focus on, because they can be monetized. We can't necessarily measure very well or monetize soft drivers. And so that's why I think it just gets so out of balance. And so that is a lot of the reason why I was so intrigued by this Growing Young book and wanted to just bring it to the forefront of recognizing the things that we can do, these soft drivers, to help increase our longevity. But not only our longevity, but we want to live long, but we want to live long and healthy. And so it's, it's not so fun to live long and not healthy. So, but live long and healthy. And these soft drivers are a great place to start. And it all is all connected, because you're going to reap the benefits on so many levels.
Right. And especially on, number 3, if we're talking about kindness doesn't cost you anything to do. It doesn't, being kind doesn't even cost you time. It's just, volunteering will cost you time, but you're making the bet that the time that you spend volunteering is well worth it. So, and based on what you're telling us, it is. And from my own experiences, when I volunteered with whether it was by myself or with my wife, we used to volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association as a support group facilitator. So that was an hour or so on a Saturday morning every month that, we gave, but, it was important that we have skills, that we can use to maybe help some people. And that was worth it to us.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about spending time, but there's time and then there's money too. And here in the US, we spend 1.5 times more per person in healthcare than any other country. I mean, that's insane. Yeah. So if we can just do the things that we need to do to live healthier lives, then we can lower our healthcare costs as well, but and I've said it before, and you'll hear me say it many times. I mean, you're going to pay for your health one way or another. You're going to pay for it. So why not pay for it? Why not, cash in on, good things like kindness, volunteering, like spending time with your partner, being social, caring for people, instead of spending time rushing around and increasing our cortisol levels, so right. It's, and putting your money into taking care of you at an earlier age so that you can live longer, rather than putting your money into your healthcare and not living, living a disease-ridden life. So it's just perspective, and it's all about where you're going to allocate your resources, mental resources as well as your financial resources.
Right. Well, if you'll allow me a shameless plug, if you're looking for volunteering opportunities, AARP always has volunteer opportunities available, or you can visit createthegood.org, and you can find volunteering opportunities that are in your interest level. So, even though AARP may not, work with animals and do volunteering experiences for animals, you can find at createthegood.org, you can find opportunities that are interesting to you, and maybe you'll make deep and lasting and fulfilling friendships. And, you never know, you might even meet somebody that you can have a connection with long term. So, I think that volunteering might just be a really great thing, because you might meet somebody with similar interests. So,
oh yeah.
Sorry,
please don't be sorry. I'm so glad that you shared that, because that is so true. Because you're going to reap the benefits on many, many, many levels, and so we live in such a society where we are very selfish, and it's important to do selfless activities. And I'll continue to always kind of push that. I do that with my children, and I do that with friends. I'm like, if I'm going to go volunteer, I'm going to invite somebody to come with me, because it's such an amazing experience. If you've never volunteered, please look up something today and just take an hour and go volunteer, and you will be amazed at the benefits. Yes. So what does it create? Create
the good.
Create the good.
Yeah. And you can find all kinds of volunteering opportunities there. And this is nationwide as well. This is not just Arizona specific, even though that's where we're broadcasting from, but it's nationwide. So you can find something in your neighborhood.
So yes, I challenge you, if you're watching today, look up createthegood.org and find an opportunity to go volunteer. You'll be so touched and so amazed, and hopefully you get hooked on it.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't see any questions in the chat, Coach. So why don't we talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about next time?
So in 2 weeks, come back and join us, and we'll be talking about avoiding isolation. As we age, it's right on the cusp, it's all connected, making sure that you're being social, but avoiding isolation, talking about how it slowly kind of creeps up on us. Because people slowly become isolated and they don't realize it. And so making sure that you're not isolated, and because isolation leads to depression. And that's ultimately what we want to try to avoid, because it happens to a lot of elderly people.
Right. Yeah. It's so sad, but I'm glad we're going to talk about it next time. So with that, we're coming to the end of our time, and thank you so much for joining us, Coach Sherry-Ann. Wonderful information as always. It's there's so much that we can do to help ourselves live healthy as we age, and I think that we've hit on a few things that really don't cost us a whole lot this time around. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.